Big doings at All Elite Wrestling. We heard this morning from our friends at Busted Open Radio. Kind of funny. I just played Dave's rant, but it was an interesting reveal. AEW CEO Tony Khan, he of the Khan family, of course, the owners of the Jacksonville Jaguars, made the announcement and has been confirmed by Warner Media in a press release that AEW Dynamite will be moving to TBS starting in January of 2022. Plus, he had some other announcements. We're going to go through all of that. Joining me now on the Vaqueros Cafe and Cantina hotline, he is the pro wrestling writer and contributor for TV Insider. Hold on, for some reason it didn't start. Let me start it again. By the way, are you still with Miami Herald?
No, I'm just doing TV Insider and Wrestling Inc. right now. I do some contributing to PWI also, but not as much.
Okay.
So mainly TV Insider and
Wrestling Inc.
Wrestling Inc. Yeah.
Good. We heard it this morning on Busted Open Radio from our friends Dave LaGreca and the crew there at SiriusXM. CEO Tony Khan of All Elite Wrestling announcing that AEW Dynamite will be moving to TBS in January of 2022. Currently, of course, they are on TNT Wednesday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. Plus, he had a few other announcements about AEW's TV doings. And so joining me now on the Vaqueros Cafe and Cantina hotline to break down all of this, he is a regular contributor, the pro wrestling contributor for TV Insider, also works with our friends at Wrestling Inc. It is our good friend Scott Fishman. Scott, how are you, man?
I'm good, Steve. How are you today? Stu, I'm sorry. How are you doing today?
No problem.
I'm good.
So this morning is an announcement. You are as dialed in as anybody. Was that kind of a surprise, the move to networks?
I mean, I knew I got an email about the upfronts that were coming, so I knew there was going to be some sort of announcement. But I think as far as moving entire networks, I think is somewhat of a surprise. I mean, there was a lot of talk about the NHL and the potential deal with Warner Media, where they would move AEW to a different night. But I don't think we ever thought, I don't know if we ever thought, but I don't know if it was something that we were all considering would happen, is then moving networks to TBS. So I think that was kind of a little bit of a surprise.
Yeah, it was to me too. And I know that TNT has become kind of the default sports network, if you will, for Warner Media between TBS. Used to be TBS and TNT would both do NBA games, and TBS would also do Major League Baseball. But it seems like the sports properties have primarily been on TNT. And as you mentioned, their new deal with the National Hockey League. So Turner will now be broadcasting NHL games. They get the package from NBC and NBC Sports Network. In addition, let's start with it before we go into the other announcements. Moving from TNT to TBS, there's always been the, I guess, perception that TBS is a more widely distributed network. Is that still the case in 2021?
I don't know if it's widely. I believe if you have TBS, you have TNT. So I don't know if that is kind of an issue, but it has been presented over the years where TNT is kind of the bigger kind of network in a sense. I mean, I think in a wrestling fan's mind anyway, because we go back to the days of Nitro. I mean, before that, of course, TBS was the big mainstay, but right. Before WCW went out of business, Nitro was the flagship show. So fans growing up during that time were thinking, okay, Nitro that's the flagship. TNT, that's where we go. Saturday Night, Thunder, that's kind of secondary right now. But I think in the past couple of years, especially with TBS, the profile of the network has gone up as they're adding more scripted television. I mean, this isn't the Andy Griffith channel anymore with running reruns all the time, or Saved by the Bell or something. They're serious. They're investing a lot of money on original content. They have a lot of announcements that they made at the upfronts besides the wrestling, where they, for example, have renewed Wipeout. So that was another big announcement that was made for another season. Um, so there were announcements made beyond that. So I think they are trying to elevate the profile of TBS. So in that sense, they see AEW fitting into that mold as well.
One of the other things that Tony revealed this morning, and it was revealed in the press release, there, we've been hearing for, I'd say, at least the last year that AEW was going to do a second show on television, not just YouTube. And so, sure enough, AEW Rampage, which debuts August 13th, 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central on TNT. Um, this is a 1 hour show. If I read this right, is that correct, Scott?
Yeah, that's how it's being presented is the 1 hour. Yes.
So, the first thing that comes to my mind is, okay, how is this going to affect the product that as it is now with Dynamite and Dark Elevation? Dark and Dark Elevation, yeah, they're in kind of their other own bubble with being on YouTube. Are are we getting to the point? Is there a fear, I should say, of AEW could end up spreading itself too thin with two TV shows on cable television coming up starting in August?
I mean, I think what comes down to making it its own identity. I mean, I think when it comes to Elevation and Dark, a lot of the focus is on basically the newer talent getting exposure, getting reps in the ring, while it's getting experience in front of crowds, while television, how to shoot, where to, move their face, their facial expressions, being on the microphone. So I think that focuses that. So that I think keeps things fresh for Dynamite to be the main show. And then we don't know, we don't have the details of what kind of show Rampage is going to be. As far as its presentation is concerned, I mean, we've heard things in here and there from the Young Bucks and Cody and Tony Khan about the idea for this show. So I think before we all like jump to the conclusion and we're worried, I think we should kind of see what's going to happen with it being on the network for that extra hour. But I think it's no surprise. I mean, not surprise, but as far as when Dynamite's on, I mean, there's a lot of guys and girls who don't get that TV time, especially the women. I mean, they've kind of not gotten the it's not been the same amount of television time. So having that extra hour could definitely help with those concerns. But another thing is it's on at 10 o'clock. So does that mean is it going to be more of an adult oriented product compared to, Dynamite, which is from 8 to 10? I mean, so there's a lot of questions. I mean, we're just finding out about the official early details right now. But I think as things kind of come together, I mean, it might be something that's completely different and fresh moving forward. So I think at this stage of the game, I think it's too early to tell, but I think the key is to make it its own kind of identity.
And I would say one advantage is having 3 hours of programming, but at least it's split on different nights rather than say a Monday Night Raw, which is 3 hours on a Monday night, and it was a labor to watch when they were booking good storylines. Now it's a pain. Um, Let me ask you this: they've also announced. Oh, by the way, and that will move to TBS as well in January. Is that right? Or
Um,
it will?
that I
They didn't
don't
make it
think
clear.
that. Yeah, I think that I'm not sure if that's going to stay on TNT or not. But
Okay.
I think the thing is that we're not thinking about is the date where it premieres and everything. That's in August. Maybe they're kind of seeing how things go. How will the ratings be for what will the audience be like on TNT? And then maybe from there they'll kind of go into what's going to happen in 2022. There's still plenty of time between 21 and 22 to see where things land. So I think this having it run in the summer is a good way to gauge, kind of get a sense. I mean, summer audiences it's kind of challenging, with everyone going outside, traveling, things like that, especially now with being out of COVID a little bit more.
Sure.
But I think it's a good way to kind of get their feet wet to see how things pan out and to see what kind of show they want it to be too.
Exactly. Exactly. Talking with Scott Fishman from TV Insider and Wrestling Inc. here on Sports Guys Talking Wrestling. In addition, and this whole announcement, it is so obvious how much Tony Khan was a fan of WCW and Jim Crockett Promotions before that. So, in addition to the move to TBS, the new hour on Friday nights, TNT is going to have 4 wrestling specials annually. This sounds like the old school Clash of the Champion specials that TBS used to do. Um, so my guess is this is going to be kind of those, like back in the day, those Clash of Champions that were kind of a bridge between pay-per-views. How do you see it?
Yeah, I mean, that was when that announcement was first made. It did take me back to the Clash of Champions. I always thought, before Thunder was a thing, and that was kind of like a special moment. It's like, hey, it's like a pay-per-view, but I don't have to pay anything extra for it. So it was really fun to have those. And in many ways, AEW has already started the ball rolling when it comes to these concept shows like Blood and Guts, where they can just kind of transition these kind of tentpole shows that they've been having on Dynamite into these shows that we're seeing on these quote super cards. We're going to be looking forward to, but it does bridge the gap between the pay-per-views, but it's it still makes the pay-per-views kind of a step above. So there's like tiers when it comes to shows. So I actually like the idea of having those 4 specials, and it shows Warner Media's commitment to AEW. A lot of people are like, oh, they're moving to TBS, it's a demotion, but they're not looking at the big picture. They're not seeing, hey, I get it. They're getting another hour of television, not just television, prime time television. They're getting the specials, which is also a big deal. But then you also think about Cody and Brandy's reality show, Roads to the
Right.
Top. So, and then Cody's hosting the Go Big show. He's a judge on that. So you're seeing that them expanding and slowly kind of being in all these different pots. So that's something that WCW really never had. So just the fact that AEW is getting that and they're getting that big promotional push, I think is a big thing right now.
Well, and talk about how things can change in 20 years. You think back to when WCW shut down, when Vince bought them. At the time, it was because Turner Broadcasting got taken over by AOL Time Warner, and we always heard that AOL Time Warner did not want to be in the wrestling business. That's why they got rid of the time slot for Nitro, which led to Vince buying WCW for pennies on the dollar. So now you fast forward to 2021, Turner Broadcasting is growing that wrestling, property again with the 2 hours on TBS, an hour on TNT, plus the 4 specials. Plus they do these, Road to specials on occasion when they're coming up to a pay-per-view. You mentioned Roads to the Top, the reality series with Cody and Brandy. Uh, does it surprise you that Warner Media and Turner have have embraced AEW so much here in the first 2 years, somewhat of their existence, especially with AEW's performance, which seems they have outperformed all sorts of other entertainment and sports shows during the pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to believe this is a company that's still very in its infancy and it has done so much over time. So I think that, TNT, TBS, the Warner Company in general, umbrella is seeing, the numbers don't lie. And they're seeing this show right out of the gate. They're always looking for content. These all, streaming, they have HBO Max. There's so many ways to go about it. They're always looking for things that they can put on their shows. And they see the popularity of professional wrestling right now. A lot of people are like, oh, the ratings aren't what they used to be. But the way people are consuming media right now, when you look at the numbers on YouTube, you look at their social media imprints through Twitter, and TNT is getting on the fun, their Twitter handle during Dynamite, and they're seeing the response that the fans have given them. And I think this regime right now that is not the same regime that was back then, I think. So a lot of things have changed. The market, the landscape, everything is different. So I think they're taking a look at all that and the reach and then the potential of it to be more in a long-term situation. So they're investing at this level and they're kind of expecting it to go up and up and up. And, it's just about, the amount of reps and just keep doing what they're doing. And more fans are coming on board. So it's an exciting time, but it's great to have that backing, that support, because it is so important.
Absolutely. And one of the great things is they have the built-in, for lack of a better term, a developmental system, farm system, whatever you want to call it, with what you see with dark elevation, bringing in the independent talents, bringing in some of those wrestlers that, like I always track all the Texas based talent, whether it's Will Alday or Bert Vixen, or a lot of those, and watching them. We've seen Fuego del Sol on the independent scene here in Texas, Texas, Oklahoma area a lot. So do you see a a I guess a an elevated expansion of the AEW roster with these new shows coming online soon?
I mean, you kind of see the seeds for it. I mean, you see the Nightmare Factory, you see even in Dustin Rhodes' wrestling school as well. So I think those two will be great resources when it comes to talent and providing opportunities. We're already seeing it right now with what we're seeing on television. So I think we will, they're going to always need talent, but now especially when they have all this programming that they're putting together in order to keep things fresh. You want to see different faces, you want them, different storylines, but you don't want to exhaust the audience. But I think as wrestling fans, there's different, types of the wrestling fan within the whole community, where there's ones who watch all the shows Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and there's the ones that just, want to just watch Dynamite and all the big shows. So I think right now they have a good system in place as far as what they've been doing with elevating talent and providing a place for them to grow. One of the things that I think will be interesting in the next couple of months is as they start hitting the road, what kind of talent will be if we'll see, and how they'll react and respond, because there's a lot who have been more in front of this COVID era crowd, whereas it's not like it was, with a packed capacity crowd and that atmosphere that AEW had right out of the blocks. But they now will have this opportunity to kind of finally build and move forward with what they created initially, and stop. It's almost like they were in this kind of holding pattern, and now that they're able to kind of go on the road again, it's like, okay, let's do this.
And you're based in Florida, so it's you and I are we probably got the best perspective, because they're going to hit Miami first, then
Yep.
they're coming here to the Austin area. In fact, the arena, the HEB Center at Cedar Park, is, I would say, 10 minutes from Dustin School.
Right.
So you got that right there, and then they go right up I-35 to Garland in the Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex. How excited are you for July, when we actually get to see, for the first time in a year and a half, almost a year and a half, to see a wrestling show that will be on television in front of actual non-digital, living, breathing, yelling fans?
I mean, I got a sense of that too. Just recently, I got to attend Blood and Guts, and just that was their biggest crowd of this era in Daly's Place, and it was electric. I mean, even translated on television, it felt like there was thousands of people there because the energy was so strong. So just getting that feeling just makes me even more excited to see what it's going to be like. For example, even a Double or Nothing, because we're going to get a sense of what a crowd is at that level. But then you talk about moving to the bigger venues, like the James L. Knight Center in Miami, which is such a historic venue when it comes to wrestling, in addition to being the site of the second Nitro. So that's kind of a cool little piece of history that AEW now coming back there in that venue, which will be kind of something special. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what the presentation and how a lot of the guys and girls, the reaction that they got, because it'll be a sense like it was a WrestleMania. Like, that was so special. You could see it on their faces, the reaction, just what it meant to them to be able to have that crowd again. So it really does make a difference. So it's going to be so fun to see.
The one thing I always, every week on Dynamite, you mention crowd reaction and how the wrestlers react. The one things I always love watching is Chris Jericho when he comes out and the crowd is singing Judas, and this was even back when he was like the worst of heels. He had to be just dastardly, but he couldn't help. You could see him about to just bust out with the biggest smile just to hear his song being sung by half of Jacksonville, Florida. There, the Jacksonville Children's Choir, as Excalibur so lovingly refers to them as. So yeah, I gotta believe that first one in Miami, and then coming here in the Austin area and going up to DFW. Those first three crowds, it's going to be electric. The fans at those three shows, and I'll be at the one here in Austin and at the one in Garland. Those are going to be it's going to be nights to remember, if only for the crowd reaction. I just can't wait. Before I let you go, tell me what you have seen the last few weeks with Dynamite. They're building towards Double or Nothing. What part of Double or Nothing, and we're going to find out the card tonight, but what part of Double or Nothing are you looking forward to the most?
Well, I think one of the great things about that we've been seeing in AEW programming the last couple of weeks has been more focus on characters and the storytelling. I feel like the storytelling has been a lot more stronger than it has been. So everything going into Blood and Guts and their bigger shows, I feel made everything matter and mean more. So for me, going into Double or Nothing, there's a lot of great stories and matches that I'm looking forward to as a result. One of them is, of course, Britt Baker challenging Hikaru Shida for the women's championship. Just the fact that Shida has held on to the championship for this long, and Britt Baker, just the transformation that she's undergone in the last couple of months, that is incredible to see. And then, of course, the Stadium Stampede, once again revisiting it one more time. I think that's a great kind of great way to put a bow on the whole time in Jacksonville, just with the way it was shot last time, and just kind of thinking about them having another one and how they're gonna try to beat the last one, which was so entertaining. So I think for me, those two are the big matches. Of course, the triple threat match for the AEW Championship with Orange Cassidy. Who knows what's going to happen with Orange Cassidy in that situation, and Pac with Kenny Omega. But the match is going to be great, and the fans are going to be so electric for it. So there's some great matches on the card, more, as you said, that are going to be announced. But just overall, I think the storytelling has been a lot stronger than it has in the past.
As both an AEW and NFL fan, the biggest thing I'm hoping for is they find a way to involve what's his name? The Jaguars from Clemson, the quarterback. I just blanked on. Anyway, find a way to include him in the Stadium Stampede somehow, or find a way to include Urban Meyer.
Or Tim Tebow. I mean, Tim Tebow will be hanging around.
That's right. Yeah, he's trying to be a tight end.
Oh man, imagine Gronkowski. Oh man, that would be the ultimate heel move or face move. I don't know.
That could be interesting. Yeah, that could be interesting. He is Scott Fishman. Catch all of his stuff. TV Insider Wrestling Inc. Scott, thanks so much, man. All the best to you. We will talk again soon.
Yeah, thanks, Stu. It was great having fun.